Since we already showed you how to remove the stock 5-speed, we're not going to duplicate that or repeat it. We're going to just get started with the OD6, the overdrive 6-speed installation, starting now. This shift drum pillow block assembly needs to be installed right from the get-go here to check for shimming. With the overdrive 6-speed builder's kit, 3 shims are supplied. The good news is that Harley-Davidson transmission cases dimensionally are pretty darn consistent, especially if manufactured after 1990. And because of this consistency, the thinnest shim, which measures 20 to 21 thousandths thick, is generally the shim that ends up yielding the spec of 5 thousandths plus or minus 3 thousandths in play. Most Harley transmission cases manufactured after the mid-90s do not require any modification to fit the overdrive 6-speed into the housing. However, we do advise that you just go through this one check to make sure that the 6th gear on the main shaft clears the case. The 6th gear on the main shaft resides about right there. And there are 2 areas of concern. There's this fork boss area, and then there's the area under this lower screw hole. And the clearance check is pretty simple. If material emanates above the line of the gasket, you want to take a flat file and just knock it down to match it to the gasket profile. You only need to do this about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch inboard from the gasket surface, but that material needs to be removed to ensure that when you install the overdrive 6-speed gear set, that this gear doesn't contact that area. Tool A is the comprehensive service and repair toolkit that allows you to remove the main drive gear from the left side case bearing. It also allows you to draw the new main drive gear into the bearing. And so I'll take 2 3/4 inch wrenches and draw the main drive gear through like so. When the effort increases towards the end, you know that the main drive gear is drawn all the way through. And what I'm going to do is remove the tool on this side. As shown here, this main drive gear is pulled through the bearing, and it's seated and it's ready for the next step. While we're on this side, we'll go ahead and install the ratchet pawl and the centering pin here. And after we get the left side dressed up, we'll move over to the other side and then install the gear set. This is the ratchet pawl that came out of the transmission. To install the new shift drum pillow block assembly, modification of this beak is required. This is the original one. This is the modified one. As you can see, you need to flip the spring up and peel the pawl lever there back, and you need, with a bench grinder, to follow this contour all the way around and remove this beak. This is necessary for correct shifting. If the beak is not removed, if this profile is not followed all the way around like shown, misshifting or shifting difficulty could result. With the ratchet pawl modified, I'm going to go ahead and install it from this side. And then a snap. And that sounds good. We're going to install the washer and a small 7/16 retaining ring. All right, snap is always a good sound when you're installing a retaining ring. At this time, we're going to go ahead and run the center screw through the case. With that ratchet pawl buttoned up, the main drive gear in place, we're going to go to the other side and resume gear set installation. A couple things about the gear set. Let's talk about this. All the gear teeth are finished ground. What that means is the gears are heat treated to roughly 55 to 62 Rockwell C. After heat treatment, and of course you heat treat for wear resistance, but after heat treat, that does distort the gear teeth. Grinding the teeth after heat treatment, you correct any imperfections and any movement in the shape of the gear teeth. By grinding the gear teeth after heat treatment, you correct the gear teeth profile to within fractions of a thousandth of an inch. We'll go ahead and install it at this time. You want to reach in there and rattle the gears back and forth to line up the countershaft gear with the main drive gear. And once again, whether you're using tools or you're using your hands, if you ever get to a point where you're having to force things and things don't feel right, just back away from it and really analyze what's going on. At this point, we're sitting on the case dowels, and we can drive it home with a dead blow hammer. When that tone changes, when the pitch of the dead blow changes, you know you got it home and you're in a good spot. So next we'll install the screws around the perimeter here. But before we do that, the stock electronic speed sensor goes in the case with the 5-speed. With the 6-speed overdrive, we provide a dummy plug to fill that hole in the case such that the stock speed sensor gets relocated out here on the door. I'm going to go ahead and put that out of the way, put in the dummy plug, and we're going to rock and roll with this little dummy plug here. I'm going to install that there and just tighten it by hand. Good enough. On touring model bikes, they use an exhaust bracket like this. This is the stock one that came off the 5-speed transmission. With the 6-speed overdrive, the trap door is a little bit thicker, and that requires the exhaust bracket. If you use a stock or stock-like exhaust on your FL, it requires that bracket to be modified. You can see the difference in height on these two brackets. It's roughly a ½ inch. So we're going to install the modified exhaust bracket on the bottom 4 bolts on the trap door. I'll tighten these screws down by hand. They should be torqued to 12 to 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead and install the top 2 screws as well. You know, I just torque these 1/4-20 bolts by hand. If you really want to torque them with a torque wrench, 10 to 14 foot-pounds is adequate. The next step is going to be to install the shift forks. The overdrive 6-speed shift system is a little bit different than the conventional 5-speed configuration. It's a 4-fork shift system. 3 of the forks ride on the stock fork rail, and we have what's called an auxiliary shift fork rod that's fed through the door in this location. Once again, it's a 4-fork shift system. These are the 3 forks that get installed onto the main fork rod, and this one is labeled 1M, which means it's the first gear on the main shaft. The installation instructions detail very well which forks go where, and this is labeled 3C, 3rd gear countershaft, boom, and this is labeled 2M, 2nd gear on main shaft. We have all 3 of those forks in place. Apply a little lube to the fork rod and slide it through the forks, and just push it in past the gasket surface of the door. Next is the fourth fork, labeled 4C. It goes on fourth gear on the counter shaft, and it's fed in through the top here. You may have to move the 1M fork out of the way a little bit to gain clearance, but it's on the fourth gear right now, and you feed this fork rod through with that fork in place. Little blue Loctite on the set screw. And you put it home there. We're at the point of installing the shift drum and pillow block assembly that we set up previously. Always double check for the presence of all four top case dowels. They're really necessary for the shifting to function correctly. You want to go ahead and put blue Loctite on those four cap screws that are going there. With the shift drum in place, go ahead and take the shift pawl and you flip it back over. You take the spring and carefully flip it back up on top of the shift pawl. You go ahead and test it and make sure it's free and springs back like it's intended. And so all the hard parts are installed on the transmission now. Time to put the top cover on, we'll put the oil spout on, and we'll wrap this job up. Okay, top cover in place. Next step is to install the side cover. The stock Harley side cover fits, as well as many aftermarket side covers. We provide a new right side push rod with the builder's kit. It's a little bit longer to compensate for the fact that the door is a little bit wider than stock. So go ahead and install the right side push rod at this time. Also, because the door is a little bit wider, we provide longer screws to go through the top of the side cover. And go ahead and install the side cover gasket that's provided with the kit. If you don't use the longer push rod, the clutch won't function correctly. It won't release properly, it won't engage properly, so using that longer push rod is definitely required. Last step in the installation process with the Overdrive 6-speed on the FL Touring models here is the oil spout. The stock oil spout is here, and this is the function formed oil spout that's provided with the Overdrive 6-speed builder's kit for 2002 to 2006 FLs. The function form oil spout is a pretty neat piece for a couple of reasons. The routing of the breather line goes underneath the transmission here rather than above the transmission in the stock configuration. The other really neat feature of this piece is that it has a screw-in dipstick. Anytime there's a performance engine application, generally crankcase pressures are much higher than stock, and blowing out the stock dipstick is a common problem out here with the threaded-in dipstick. That eliminates the problem of dipsticks blowing out. By routing the vent line underneath the transmission behind the clutch cable, we have proper vent line routing. I'll feed the dipstick and spout assembly into the case like so, and take the 4 bolts provided with the kit, install them through the oil spout into the case. And I'm going to tighten this nut down, and that concludes the installation of the Overdrive 6-speed builder's kit into a 2002 Road King. You know,